Hey everybody, so if you can tell by that DVD cover I just showed a second ago, I'm going to talk about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. This is the first, and I believe only Halloween film that had nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever. But another reason why I wanted to talk about this film today, you guys, is because if you've seen my recent video where a good friend of mine and I compare John Carpenter's Halloween with Rob Zombie's Halloween, um, we get into detail about how both directors, if you've seen this video, of course, what they did good, what were some of the bad things they did, which one was better, which one was worse, that kind of thing. But I guess in some ways, because this film is so different, I feel it should get its own review because it is so different from the rest of the Halloween series. And this is back when John Carpenter was still a part of the series as well. Um, so Halloween 3, you guys, it's actually centered around a doctor, not Dr. Loomis, but a completely different character, completely different. I think this one even takes place in California, so it doesn't even involve Haddonfield, Illinois, which is, I think, a fictional place too. Um, but anyway, there's this doctor who gets this person in his hospital one night, and this happens pretty early on in the movie. And this guy is holding onto this Halloween mask that has this shamrock coin device attached to the mask. It's like a pumpkin mask. And let me see if I. So I guess the mask that he was holding on to looks similar to this one here, the pumpkin mask. And you can also get a witch or a skeleton mask too in this movie. That's kind of the silver shamrock mask that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But anyway, he had the pumpkin one there, and at first people don't know what it is. It's like, why? How come he's holding onto a Halloween mask? How come he's hurt like this? So they keep him there for the night, to heal and everything. And later that night, a guy, a random person off the street, at least what you think that is at this point in the story, comes in and kills the guy. So after he kills the guy, he commits suicide himself outside the hotel, so they can't get any answers from him or anything. So now it's completely up to this doctor to tell the family why this guy died, because they eventually do track down the family too. Um, but the film specifically focuses on the daughter of this man, and I believe she's like in her late 20s or early 30s, from what I could tell. And so the doctor has to tell her, your dad died. There's there was a stranger that came in one night and killed him, and that's not exactly an easy thing to tell someone, especially in a public hospital. But so there's enough questions on both the mind of this girl and the doctor where they actually team up, and they try to find answers about this Halloween mask, because that's the only form of evidence they have of why this guy was killed that night in the hospital. So they go on this road trip, and they eventually get a tour of this Halloween mask place in this town where there's a lot of strict rules. It kind of focuses on what the Silver Shamrock Factory's schedule is like. So, like around 6 p.m., I believe, at one point in the movie, they even say, people gotta close their doors. They gotta, this is our closing hours. This is the town's closing hours because Silver Shamrock's closed for the night and all that stuff. So pretty much this town functions on based off Silver Shamrock's schedule. So they respect the schedule to kind of blend in, so the people there don't get suspicious of what they're doing and trying to get answers about these masks and everything. Specifically, the coin device on the back of the mask. So there's these silver shamrock masks, because I promised I would explain this before. And like I said, there's a pumpkin one, a skeleton one, and a witch one. And they're huge with kids. They're always advertised on the radio and on TV. The kids want them. They really, really want these masks for their Halloween costumes that year. So they go to this factory, the Silver Shamrock factory later the next day, and they get a tour, and there's a room that's actually not allowed to be shown to the public eye. And so that's when the doctor and the girl, who's the daughter of the guy that got killed earlier in the movie, really get suspicious. And so they further explore the factory at a time where they're not supposed to be there. And that's where the trouble of the film really starts up, and that's where the conflict of the story really starts to go into full effect too. Um, And I guess without ruining the movie, there is something about these Halloween masks that has a really deadly secret about them, and it's important that people do not wear the masks at a certain point in time when their TV sets around because something bad will happen to them if they have these masks on, specifically the ones where they have the coins on the back. That's about as much as I want to say without ruining the film for those who haven't seen this one, but I'm sure most of you have who are watching this. But um, as far as positives and negatives go, you guys, I really like that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who I believe are both producers and writers of this film, mostly the producing, I believe. I think they might have pitched in some writing ideas every once in a while, but writing wise, they weren't as involved as they were producing wise. They didn't direct it. I know a Tommy Lee Wallace directed this, and he was one of the main writers of it too. Um, so I liked how this film had a completely different direction from the rest of the series. Like I said, I wanted to review this film specifically because it is so different, specifically in this series too. And I think it was just kind of neat to see, kind of what the series would be if it was not about Michael Myers. Just kind of the holiday of Halloween, and what would be the other story that John Carpenter would tell if it wasn't that Michael Myers story we were once familiar with. Um, I also like how there was a lot of Halloween 1 and 2 references throughout this, a lot of Easter eggs. Jamie Lee Curtis has a voice cameo in this. I'm not 100% certain, but I think the girl who played one of Laurie Strode's friends in the first Halloween was in this too, as the wife of the doctor, the ex-wife of the doctor. Um, it was just a lot of really cool to see all these references. The kind of the TV special that leads up to that event where the masks react to the TV. They have like a Halloween special going on, and they actually show the original Halloween. So that's really the only time in the film where you actually get to see Michael Myers is when he's walking down the staircase in the original Halloween on the TV set when they're advertising it. Um, and yeah, it was just kind of cool just to see all those references throughout the movie. The two lead characters in this, I believe it was Tom Atkins from Creepshow, for those who've seen that, and Stacy Nelkin, who I believe was a big model back in the day too. So a lot of guys probably went to go see it just to see her in it. But yeah, I thought these two lead characters are really fun to watch. Even though it was quite clear that the doctor was way too old for her and she was too young for him, because there was kind of this secretive love affair going on at one point in the movie too. They were just, you could tell they wanted to work together and really find out the mystery behind these masks and why everybody wants them, and kind of the evil scheme behind them, and why it's important they figure out this mystery. And I really like the whole Halloween mask campfire story feeling to this movie. It has that feeling like somebody's telling you this story at a campfire, and I really like that. It's kind of like the film Trick or Treat, for those who've seen that as well. Really clever Halloween mask story, once again, from John Carpenter, for whatever department he worked on in this movie. And speaking of John Carpenter, another positive thing about this film, you guys, is the fact that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who were big parts of the production of the first two movies, I just liked how they continued to be a part of the series, specifically with this one too. And I believe Deborah Hill even stated in an interview that they wanted to do something completely different for part three, because John Carpenter was so uncomfortable writing part two back when they worked on that. So it was just really neat to see those two people still a part of the Halloween franchise at this point, even if it was something they were still kind of iffy about at the time still too. Overall, guys, this film's not as good as the original Halloween as to be expected. And I would also say this film is not as good as Halloween H20, which was the one where I think it was the seventh installment, where Michael Myers goes after Laurie when she changes her identity and moves to a different state, and he's still able to find her and everything. And it was very much along the line of the original Halloween. I think that's why I really liked it. So unfortunately, this film is not as good as the original, but like I said, because it is such a different direction, it is such a unique installment in this series. Also, there was some androids involved with this film. I won't get into too much detail, but when the androids are involved with this movie, it's very cheesy, very, very cheesy, in fact. So I wish they could have handled that android part of the film much more appropriately, because it really struck me as cheesy. Even for an 80s film perspective, it struck me as cheesy too. Um, Overall, it's just not as clever as one would think it is. You look at this cover, you're like, oh man, different direction. Even though it does involve Michael Myers, I wonder how cool this is going to play out, kind of a thing. And to tell you the truth, it is a good film and everything, but it really is not as good as one would hope for just by looking at the thing. So I guess another reference of saying, don't judge a book by its cover, because unfortunately the cover is in some ways more appealing than the actual film. But I just love these little masks here, and like it's still a good film, you guys. I'm not saying it's a bad one, but just be warned, it's not as clever as the original Halloween, that is. Another thing too, you guys, and actually I looked this up on YouTube after watching this video. Look at the teaser trailer for this movie, and you will say to yourself, how come this film was not as scary as this trailer I just watched? Because if they could have made this movie as scary as the trailer was, where it was kind of a faded out version of one of the masks, I would have loved this movie. If they could have done something where that faded witch mask was on someone, or like what if Michael Myers, like what if they wanted to keep with the Michael Myers thing and he wear that mask instead of the William Shatner one that from the first one? I think that could have been really cool if they did something along that line and maybe made it more connected to the Halloween franchise than one would expect. Um, but overall, guys, I'm going to give the film an 8.5 out of 10. There is a lot of fun to be had here, especially a lot of camp value and 80s value, and kind of what would John Carpenter's vision be like if it wasn't a Michael Myers Halloween story kind of a thing. So 8.5 out of 10 for me, you guys. A fun film, but just to be warned, it's not as good as the original Halloween.